Yo guys, this is Reinhard, it's your favorite Russian talking, and today we're gonna talk a little bit about solo queue, about particular ratings, where you stack in the ratings anywhere below 2k, and we're gonna put a good amount of analysis in it. Having hit kind of a rival 1900 kissing sub 2k rating on my DK, Demon Hunter, Affliction Luck, and even Rested Druid, I can tell you first and forehand, I know a lot of mistakes that are people making in those brackets, and I was one of them that was making mistakes. What we need to understand, my friends, is that the meta shifted so much where in Mists of Pandaria, I would say this, Mists of Pandaria 1800 rated people would focus CC the healer. Now we have 1400 teams do exactly the same thing that the 1800 teams did back in the day. So there's a lot of different learning curve and a lot of learning I needed to make in order to understand what is going on in arena and how to push ratings. Also, disclaimer, I still think I'm a scrub. There's still a lot of things I need to learn. I need to know how to counter healers better, so I'm going to be trying to play all multiple healers as well. So with that said, without further ado, let's jump into analyzing why our ratings suck. In our corporate world, we always like to joke smartly and say, hey, I know what I know what I don't know, I don't know what I know, and I don't know what I don't know. Well, to translate it here very quickly is, I'm fortunate enough to know what I do not know. Like personally, I still don't know the damage thresholds of various specs. I still don't know how to counter really well priests, mistweavers, and preservation walkers. For example, my win-loss ratio against H-Palace is usually close to 70%, while my win-loss ratio against like priests or preservation is under 50%. I need to learn how to do better. But with that said, is having that old school gladiator top ratings that I had before, at least I know where to start and how to practice. And as I'm relearning this game, and for a lot of people who are returning, who got stuck in some kind of ratings, I would like you to take this journey with me. And I will be basically sharing my thoughts, my improvements, my ideas, and things that have worked for me, and hopefully it's gonna work for you as well. But with that said, let's have a little bit of fun. So people that are stuck between 1000 to 1200 ratings, I'm sorry to say this, but this is pretty bad. This is really, really bad. At this point in time, they're not running good optimized spec. Like they can run a dot build Unholy DK with a claw, which doesn't make sense at all. Like you would minimize your dot damage by 50% if you pick the claw. So incongruency on the specs. Also, these guys use defensives really weirdly and really randomly. Like as a healer, this is 1200 and 1400 and 1600 are like the worst brackets to be in, because people really lack a lot of experience here. And last but not least, a lot of people in 1000 to 1200, they just do no damage. They do no damage, but the good bursts sometimes come in. So as a healer, when you're healing this, it looks like this. Boring, boring, everybody tapped, everybody tapped, boom, somebody's dead. And I know that gameplay happens later on at like higher ratings, but that happens with a very good coordinated cross-CC chains and bursts. But in this bracket, it just happens randomly, just randomly. People who are stuck between 12 to 1400, again, this is not me bashing, this is being realist. So if, please don't get offended, my friend, but if you did get offended, this is not the channel for you. People who are stuck between 12 to 1400, they do shit damage, they have a bad position, and they have terrible defenses. So let me elaborate on that a little bit, so that will help you. When I was stuck in that bracket, I remember Fire Mage, I remember a couple Hunters. I remember this is the easiest bracket to go 6-0. To get 6 wins as a DPS, this by far one of the easiest brackets to get. Why? Is because if you know what you're doing, if you know how good your damage is, and I will tell you how to practice, how to get better at this game, what practices I'm using too. But with that said, is if you do really, really good damage, you can actually push away from this 1400. Another thing I noticed, a lot of people just line of sight you healer for no reason. That happens all the way to like 1900, 1800 ratings, but in this case, it's prevalent at all. Like at 1800, people understand that they go behind the pillar and at least they have some kind of defense that they can pull back. In this case, they just go behind the pillar to die. And the terrible defenses, as soon as somebody breathes on the DPS, they pop defenses without even relying on their healer to heal. So what usually happens is DPS would get low and the healer use his cooldowns to get the target back up. Well, in these cases, I noticed that these guys would use their defensives On top of you sometimes using your also defenses as a healer, and not a good idea. Like if people would actually hold on to their defenses just a little bit longer here, I think they would have been in better shape. With that said, moving on to 1400 to 1600 bracket. I'll tell you what, people who are stuck in here, they have bad burst, they tunnel vision just one target without swapping, but most important, they have a shit CC. Period. Shit CC. Shit crowd control. I kid you not, I was one of those mouse breathers. I'm not bashing on blood players. Like, I was one of them. Here's the idea. Nowadays, my friends, anybody can use YouTube and anybody can watch the guide and say, hey, focus card control the healer. Focus card control the healer. Everybody can do that. So people in this rating, they would just tunnel as much focus CC into a healer, even DRR themselves, just so they can potentially get a win. But in reality, what happens is the crowd control is not something that you press off cooldown. The crowd control should matter. Like, there is no reason to crowd control Resto Druid when both of the teammates are fully hearted to the 100%. It doesn't make sense. Like, you'll just waste your diminishing returns on a druid, and maybe you can stop his offensive clone, but that's about it. So in this case, when people do crowd control, they do crowd control as a check mark for optimal performance. They don't do it to get a kill, they don't do it to stop the heal and stuff like that. That would be the biggest learning opportunity for people that are stuck in this 14 to 1600 bracket. Now, moving to the 16 to 1800 bracket, as you guys see, there's a, like, the 12 to 1400 had a no positioning, no positioning. I put no position because it would go to the next sentence in the space bar. But people between 16 and 1800, they have terrible positioning, meaning they still go around the pillars to line of sight. But most of the time, what I've noticed is the positioning here is like caster DPS sometimes can blink in for that really good crowd control on the healer and fuck themselves up really bad. Like, this is a really good bracket to penalize people on their tunnel visioning on crowd control. Believe it or not, my Resto Druid did the same mistakes and I was penalized myself. This is where it comes from. Priest can walk into the fear into a full swap on him, Priest healer, right? So that's one thing, watch the positioning. And then bad sustained defenses are still happening here quite oftenly, where DPS pop their defenses completely themselves when they're 100% tapped off, or when they have the full HOTS and the healer is free casting. Guys, what I would recommend here is learn how to spread your defensives. Learn to play defensively without using your defensive cooldowns. Meaning, kite when you need to kite, line of sight when you need to line of sight. That is also defensives. And monitor your positioning. At this point in time, in order to graduate from here, you at least need to have a little bit better CCs. And last but not least, we're getting into 1800 to 2000 rating, and this is where I am trying, like, finally more or less graduating from. Number one, it's still tunneling. Tunnel one target. What I like here is people sometimes switch between the rounds. If one target is not 100% going down, they can switch in the rounds, and occasionally they can switch in the game itself, but the still tunnel vision kind of relevant here. But that's not the main mistake. What I found a lot of players play, and the mistake they make, is they play the game like it's a freaking math equation. Now, guys, I have a mathematics degree. Not math, not a drug dealer. Math, numbers. And let me tell you this, I also played this game like a math equation, and it was hard stuck even at shittier ratings. What I mean by playing as a math equation, everybody cares how much top damage they do, how much healing they do, how much defensive they do, but to the point where they put this idea that they need to top damage in order to win sometimes so much far up front, to the point where they're missing the actual gameplay. They're missing the focus clones, the damage setups, the kill setups by the enemy team, and everything else like that. They're so tunneled into their world of numbers, damage, CC, and everything else. And sometimes it's good to take a step back and play this game more fluid, as in understand this is more like a boxing ring, not the equation itself. So with that said, hopefully you guys find this video. I love you very much, and I have a quick question for you. How much do you love me, my friends? See you guys in the next video.